Epstein, the elite pedophiles. Now, see, I'm not going to say PDF because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. These is pedophiles, okay? And that just is what it is. And sometimes you got to call a thing a thing. You start trying to sugarcoat it and make it sound cute and all that, and it just doesn't have the same effect. You need to call a thing a thing. They're pedophiles, period. Now, I read a post on Threads because Instagram does this amazing thing where no matter what, they will always tell you you have a notification. And so, because I have a Threads account, I try to claim my name on as many platforms as I can. I have a Threads account, right? So, I click on this thread account thing and it says the elites are the puppets of the real elites. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but that is very, very true. Now, when I say that, what I mean is we think celebrities, right? And when we say celebrities, we're like, those are the elites. Those are the ones that, are the upper echelon. They're the, you know what I mean? They're the creme de la creme. They're the top of the top. And that there is not true. Those are puppets. Those are people willing to play the game of Hollywood, willing to, unlike, like a Governor Ned Lamont and a few other people, willing to really play that deep and gross game, because they are then run by the elites. And the elites at the top of the top, that's not a large group. It's I think it's just a small group of people. And when I say group of people, I really mean a small group of men um who come together and they each run a different facet. And I think certain people work their way up to be close to an elite, but they're not the elite. And it's kind of like when I think about it, right? And I think about the elites, I think about names or families like Rockefeller, Rothschild, Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? Like you have these elites who then run what we deem to be elites, but they're just celebrities, they're just actors, they're just, you know what I mean, actresses and people like that. They're not the elites. Now, with that being said, there is an elite ring of pedophiles, and I think Jeffrey Epstein was a part of that. And I think these emails did reveal that. Now, did I go through the emails? No, because to be honest, with this whole Trump administration, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted of it all. I will not lie to you. There's a reason why I spoke about Nicki Minaj once. I spoke about MAGA Minaj one time and one time only. I'm done with the girl. You know what I mean? I'm done with the girl. Like I said, keep exposing yourself and letting us know who you are and what you are about. I love it. This was a whole part where we needed the truth to come out, and I appreciate that it is. Now, this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, I think a lot of it has to heavily do with sex trafficking. And I don't know why people, specifically in the Trump administration, Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, you know, they're ignoring um and also, to be honest, JD Vance has been quite quiet, but they're ignoring the big thing in the room, right? Like everyone's talking about the elephant in the room and they're coming out and they're like, "W- well, guys, so," and it's like, no, 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 address the thing. Address the thing. And what's interesting about this, I think, sometimes when people engage in a certain behavior and they engage in real nasty, dirty, foul, disgusting things, they try to put it on other people to deflect and to kind of separate themselves from what themselves are doing. Here is an example or multiple. If you get out of line, right? As one of the elite's puppets, as a puppet, if you get out of line, what is the first thing they do? They throw a sex crime on you. Once you get out of line, they throw a sex crime on you. And it's very weird that that's their real like main tactic is to throw a sex crime on you. But the only way that it makes sense, if you have read or heard about these emails and seen how people are discussing them and what's in them, you're like, "Oh, You're so versed in this because you are this. You are doing things with sex trafficking and with kids and with young girls and modeling agencies and all of this. Oh, okay. That's why it's so easy for you to drum up this narrative and to drum up this, what's the word? Evidence, because you are what you label somebody. This is projection, right, at its finest. So you have the Michael Jacksons and the Diddies and the, even I would say Harvey, what is it, Harvey Weinstein, where it's like, don't get too far out of what we told you, who you could and what you could be, because then we're just gonna put these sex crimes on you. Sorry. Oops. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, there are a lot of names that are in this, and some people are like, "Well, I didn't really know him. It was just da 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 da." And okay, cool, that's fine. But here's the other part that's really annoying, because not only is it sex trafficking, but they're trying to deny it. And I did watch a documentary on Pizzagate and that whole situation, and how everyone said it was a conspiracy, and it's a conspiracy, and that's the problem. When anything is getting close to the truth, they holler and scream conspiracy. Every single time they're going to holler and scream it's conspiracy, and that person's a cuckoo nut every single time. But what I'm not understanding, and here is where I don't know, you guys help me out with this, I really don't know. There's so much stress and emphasis, especially in the articles you read, and when Pam Bondi speaks and when Cash Patel speaks, there's so much emphasis on there's no client list. There's no client list. And I have a problem with that. Now, I have a problem with that because if you're looking at someone's correspondence, meaning their texts, emails, phone calls, direct messages, what have you, right? You're looking at their communications with whoever. If you see a high interaction and an engagement, and you see these numbers are pretty high, that means that person was important to Jeffrey Epstein. Here is an example, right? If you were to pull my call log and you saw that I had 55 in the last year, 2 years, I had 55,000 calls to one person, you would put that person down and write their number down. And then you might go and say, oh, they have 45,000 to this person. And you would put that number down. And so forth and so on. Do you know what that creates? That creates a fucking list. So no, you may not have a little black book of each name who did what and who did what, like he was a fucking madam. Like, but you can tell by the number of interactions who was important to this man and who needed him for what. Now, I would say it's speculation that they say pizza was referenced 900 or something, astronomical in these files. Who said what how many times? That is how we create lists. If you see that he's always interacting with this person, and their interactions always kind of lead the same, in the same, they have X amount of photos together. Well, that person should probably be on the VIP what list. So don't give me this, there's no client list. We can use our critical thinking skills. We can use our common sense, although I am painfully realizing it is not that common, like in real time. Like for real, that's not just a saying. People really don't have common sense. Because if you were to just list out the people who interacted with Jeffrey Epstein the most, you might have a client list. So please stop trying to be so just playing with us, right? Like come on. Come on. We don't need it. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on, Candace Owens, if you watched her, not her last episode, I think it was the episode before last, She had mentioned an email, she put it up on screen where they had spoke about Emmanuel Macron, who is the president of France, and it said, like, they got pictures of Emmanuel Macron's boyfriend, the hypocrisy, and I'm like, it's so funny. Again, remember when she was saying that, it's okay, Emmanuel, people are accepting gay people and you don't have to pretend and hide, yada, yada, yada. Everyone was like, he's not gay. He's married to a woman. Candace is crazy. And then the emails come out. Remember, it was a conspiracy, right? It's a conspiracy. She's crazy. They're going to sue her. And then it comes out in an email that they saw photos of him with his boyfriend. And Candace, so poignantly said, whoa, yeah, he's gay. He's married to a man. And there are times like that where sometimes, I said the world is off kilter. Those are the times where it feels like the world is just trying to balance itself back out because if you have all this evidence that points to a thing being a duck, and then you have someone call it a duck, you can then not say, oh, you conspiracy theorists, you don't have proof. Well, let me just lay out again how all these things point to this being a duck, and I call it a duck. And eventually the duck quacks. It was a fucking duck. You know what I mean? I just really want us to understand they're playing they're playing what they assume to be mind games, but it's just like slowly falling apart.